y'all, it's Vicki and welcome to another video. So today is my weekly Sarasota Tim video recap. We're going to be talking about videos from Monday 3/17 through Saturday, whatever Saturday was. I don't remember. Okay, let's talk about Monday. And for those of you that don't know who Sarasota Tim is a YouTuber who I got started watching about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I can't tell you exactly. It was before his Social Security video went viral. I was watching him when he had the Forerunner. And then for whatever reason, that video went viral. And from that moment on, I feel like that there's before the Social Security video, and then there's the after. So anyway, we're after the Social Security video. And we're going to talk about what he had to say this week that is just so enlightening and that everyone needs to know because Sarasota Tim knows it all. Okay, there's not much to report on Monday. He never mentioned St. Patrick's Day. Not saying that he had to, but I never once heard him mention it, but maybe he did. And because I don't watch every video. I'll usually pick out one, maybe two, because sometimes he will film 7 times a day or more. Okay, he says that he was leaving the Villages this day. He said he showed JJ, his friend JJ, and when I say leaving the Villages, he was not really leaving the Villages. He's leaving outside of the Villages. He's in the vicinity of the Villages. Anyway, he went to Planet Fitness and showed JJ how to work the machines because Tim is a personal trainer now. And then when he got back to his camper, his Flagstaff, he made salmon, or let's just say he burnt salmon. I'm not a salmon eater, but if he was having me for dinner, which is not going to happen, but if he was having me for dinner, I think I would have to spit that out in my napkin and try not to hurt his feelings. Okay, on 3/18, this is the morning chat. He talks about Bev, which is JJ's wife. I'm not going to go into that much. I don't know what's going on there, but of course, Tim asked for prayers, and that's fine. I just hope that he told her he was going to do that. He says that he's so confused on dieting that he's just going to watch calories in and then calories out. So he's going to go burn all the calories off, he says, that he's taken in. And we'll talk about that as we get into the week. And, that is probably the proper way to do it if you can do it that way. But it's hard to burn up 10,000 calories unless you're really into working out. And Tim is not really into working out. Tim makes out like he is, but we know that he would not have a weight problem if he was really into working out. Or he wouldn't have a gut. I can tell you, I have a gut and I'm not into working out. I was at one time, but the bugs never bit me since. So anyway, well, I put it this way. It hasn't bit me again. Maybe it will one day. Maybe if I went to Planet Fitness, it would bite me again. I can think of worse problems to have than going to the gym all the time. Okay, now, and I put a note here, that's right, Tim, get your heart rate up. Burn the fat. You can also teach your body how to burn fat with what you're eating, but we'll get into that later. He talks about politics again, wondering what's going on with Epstein. Sure, we want to know what's going on, who's on the list. Being on a flight list, though, doesn't make someone guilty. Now, that's the part that I think, and I'm not going to get into politics, but we have to remember, not everyone is guilty that was on that flight list. If they're on the flight list going to the island, that's where I'm talking about a flight list, and they're going numerous times, that's when you start to think, well, they must have known what was going on. Now, if they went one time and never went back, I'd say they don't like it. They didn't like what they saw, so they didn't go back. Anyway, says he needs to play golf. Some people don't like to play golf, Tim. I told him that because in my head, I told him that because I said, it's not that we don't like to play golf, but we don't want to watch you play golf, Tim. I'm sure there's somebody that does. Don't get me wrong, but you got to think of your audience as a whole. You know, the majority of my audience that I have now does not want to see me do makeup, so I'm only going to do them or even talk about makeup. So I don't do it as much as I once did. You know, maybe if I did it more, I could get that audience back, or they'd learn to look and see what I put up. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. All I know is that you got to be in touch with your audience. My audience right now loves me talking about Tim. Okay, he lost 100 subs. I'm pretty sure YouTube did a cleansing of subs this past month. They usually do it at the beginning of the month, but I think this time they did it mid-month. I don't know if that's what this was. The only thing I know is he gets them back. That either tells me YouTube had messed up counting, or he bought some back. I don't know how he purchased them, but it's just odd that he lost 100 and then got them back. You can decide what happened. 319, we get another Social Security video. He's telling people they must, and I emphasize must, start collecting their money at age 62. Now, I do think he's talking to people that are younger now, but he doesn't make that distinction that he's talking to maybe a 40-year-old. He needs to, instead of just hashtagging Social Security, how about saying my advice to someone 40, whatever, someone that has time to plan to retire at 62. I'm not saying you should retire at 62 or you shouldn't. I chose not to. And, that's just the way it is. Okay, he goes on, I said blah, blah, blah. You can't retire if you got car payments or credit card bills and streaming services and all that. And I'll get into that in a minute. Okay, he lives in the camper because he refuses to pay $2,000 a month of rent. He always lived in other people's houses, and that's including his collaboration with Miss Tammy. And I said, I guess Tammy is paying the rent for the condo now that he supposedly stays in other people's houses. And my thing is that if he's not helping her out some way or another, then he's a POS. And I'll let y'all figure out what that is. In my opinion, I'm not saying he has to pay half of the rent or whatever, but he should be helping her out some way. I don't care if she's a multi-millionaire. Okay, says he lived in roommate situations and they loved him. It was always Tim moving out, never the other roommate. Or they lost their house, or all this stuff. It says he also loves to travel. Blah, blah, blah. All right, Tim, the supreme user of the universe, and I want to say thank you to Angela for that name. And it's not the Angela that I know personally, but it's someone else named Angela. Thinks everyone should plan to retire at 62. Tim, who admits to bumming off of others, trying to do as little as possible, and he admits that he worked as little as possible, is telling everybody to retire at 62. Well, some people just don't want to retire at 62. They don't want to take the cut. They're thinking they're going to live way into their 90s. There's nothing wrong with thinking that, Tim. There's nothing wrong with thinking that. All right. He says he never wants a house. We go back to a video because one video he says he never wants a house or condo or a townhouse, never that's his. And then in a video a year later, and he doesn't say, I've changed my mind. He just says, I'm going to have a sticks and bricks. Says in that video where he was out there at that campground in Utah that him and Tammy was up the pay grade that was above that camper. That's why we get mad at Tim. And I know I just snapped my tongue. Okay, Tim goes to the cardiologist. Now we're on to Wednesday or Thursday. I didn't put the date down. But anyway, Tim goes to the cardiologist. This is after he's had that calcium test he had last week, that he makes up a number. He makes up a number like 1,576. Well, last night it was 1,577. So that tells me he's making it up. All right. Tim goes to the cardiologist, and the cardiologist told him not to worry so much about the calcium test. Now, what Tim's exact words was that the calcium test didn't mean a thing. I just put in here that the cardiologist told him not to worry so much about it. He goes to say he's going to take the statin drug. Of course, he calls it the stolen drug, and feels that's best for him. Well, if you'll watch the Saturday night video, he's changed his mind. Tim thinks that he will take the statin and be able to eat whatever he wants. And that's what I thought. That was the picture I was getting, was Tim was under the impression that he could take that statin but continue to eat whatever he wants. And I keep saying, you can't, even if you take that statin pill, you cannot eat whatever you want if you have high cholesterol. And after he says what his cholesterol is, and I'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, I tell him that carbs are the main issue with him. And the reason I say that is because I am, in my opinion, saying he is a carb addict. He's a carbaholic. I am a carbaholic. The best thing I can do for myself is don't put them in my mouth. If I put them in my mouth, I'm going off the deep end. I mean, I am. It's just like picking up drugs for people that are carbaholics, sugar addicts, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, I just see the same thing in Tim that I see in myself. And that's why I try to give him advice, even though sometimes I need to take my own advice. Not saying that I shouldn't. It's a struggle every minute when it comes to food, because food we have to survive. Okay, what I said was that I think he can eat an apple or orange or strawberries, but he can't eat strawberry shortcake. And when I say he can eat it, I'm talking about one a day, maybe 3 or 4 strawberries a day in season. Now, there again, I think that we shouldn't be eating things that are out of season. That's my philosophy. I know that people's going to tell me I'm wrong, but that's just my philosophy, is that we should only be eating fruits when they're in season in the area we live in. Okay. And I think you can have a salad, but that salad needs to be, he's talking about oil and vinegar, and I agree, oil and vinegar, or I like to use lemon juice and hot sauce. So, I mean, it's whatever, it's just as long as you're not eating a gallon of fattening dressing with sugar. I mean, that's the main thing. And I also try to cut out the seed oils. Now, of course, he goes into making those baker tacos Friday night, and he uses vegetable oil. And I don't understand why he hasn't tried them with olive oil. All he's got to do is try it one time and see what happens. Okay. So I made some comments about the cardiologist video. And let me see if I can do this without reading it word for word. Okay, he opens with him. That one opening that he's got with him at Planet Fitness is just hilarious. I think it's hilarious. You may not, but whatever. He's now emphasizing solo, and Blind Views is the one that brought that up first. But I noticed it too. Everything's solo now. So is him and Tammy on the outs for material now, or are they really on the outs, or I don't know. Has Tammy, I don't know how long her lease was for that apartment. Has she decided that it's not going to work between them and she's getting ready to move somewhere else, or has she already moved somewhere else? Where is Tammy? We can always tell when she's there and when she's not there. Okay, and I put in here and I've already talked about the blind studies about statins, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not getting back into that anymore. Okay, he talks about the temperature it's beautiful in 77 there. Well, it was 82 here on Wednesday, Timmy. So your weather's not any worse or better than ours up here in North Carolina. It might be today, I don't know, but I'm just talking about midweek. And then Timmy talks about he needs to do the stress test. But that Timmy's going to do what the good Lord guides him into doing. And I think that's great. He should always pray and let the Lord decide. Okay, we're going to move on to, he made those baker tacos, and I don't see what's so great about them. You know, he acts like it's the best taco recipe there is. What's wrong with this mouse? There it goes. So we're going to look at the transcript of this video he did last night, because I didn't write down notes. So this is the fireside chat. How long have we got? We're not going to go much longer. And he starts talking about he's decided he's going to go back to carnivore. He always says carnivore is Atkins. They are not the same diet, and I wish he would stop. And, you know, they're just not the same diet. Anyway, I mean, if you choose to eat all meat on Atkins, then you're really carnivore. But anyway, I know I'm beating something that I don't need to worry about. It's not any of my business, but they're not the same. And I don't want people to think they're the same if they're just watching his videos. Now, Tim has several people that are supporting him with carnivore, and I do think that if Tim listens to them, he will do better this time, because that Jim Bauer, I think he knows what he's talking about. In my opinion, I do think that for carb addicts, carnivore, Atkins, keto is the way to go. It's just, you're not going to convince anyone that is vegan or vegetarian or that has success on a plant-based diet. You're never going to convince them that that's the way to go. My thing is that everybody is different. We can't all be on the same diet here in America, because it's a struggle no matter what we do, especially when we have a tendency to gain weight just by looking at food. And I don't care what anybody says, I could pick up certain foods, and even though I could count the calories, that food is still going to make me gain weight versus this food over here. So in my opinion, all calories are not equal. They may be when you're 20 years old, but when you get 65, 66, well, in your 60s, maybe 50s, they're not equal. They're different. So that's about all I have to say. I don't want to beat this into the bush about his diet, because we've beat that thing to death. I know that people don't agree with me on statins. I get that. You know, I try to make it clear. I'm just talking about from my experience that I've seen people with statins and without. I've seen far more people not do well than people who you'd never know they're on them. And I don't have high cholesterol, at least not yet. I know everybody thinks that I may be. I mean, I've showed my medical thing, I don't know, I showed it one time before in a video. I can't remember what it was. I'll try to remember to look it up again, and I'll show you what my stats are as far as cholesterol. No, I'm not showing you every bit of my blood work. But as far as cholesterol, I don't have that problem. I've never had that problem. Now, I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to go to the doctor in June when I go back, and it's not going to be high, because you never know. When you get a certain age, you just never know when that all of a sudden it's going to jump. Now, my grandma's, that's the way she was. I don't think she got high cholesterol until she was in her 70s. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen to me, is that all of a sudden I'm going to reach 70 something and it's going to jump. Now, I do take CoQ10. Now, I've not taken red yeast white. I used to take it some, but I decided that I wasn't going to take it until I felt like I really needed it. But I do take CoQ10 all the time. And I've been taking CoQ10 for years. And sometimes I'll go off of it for a couple of months and then go back, because I think sometimes you need a break. So that's what I do. So I'm going to close now. I don't want this video going so long. And I appreciate each and every one of you watching. I hope you have a great Sunday. And I'll be back soon with another video. So talk to y'all later. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I do. I really do. And I look forward to seeing you again. Love you. Bye.